Cursed Necropolis Rio session 18. And Sobek has discorporated. He's floating in the infinite void of time and space. But he can probably hear us, so we'll proceed. Last time, what did happen last time, Khufu, while we're waiting for Sobek?
Okay, so last time we started off, it was the 9th of February, second to last day of the carnival in Rio. We were sort of walking through all the chaos and everything that was going on, soaking up that sweet, sweet dead wind, that sort of energy that was going on. We discovered, or we sort of remembered, that there was a facility specifically built to channel the energy created by the carnival, which the sort of procession goes through, and we experienced all these magnificent floats that all these different schools do, and it's almost like a performance piece as they're heading through. Khufu chose to summon up the spectre that he'd used to down Kazmut's plane. They're a strange sort of merit member. Shortly before doing that, they bumped into one of these sort of ghost hunter TV crews, so around the tomb, and he sort of invited them to this fake seance that he was doing, which was the cover for using his powers. Obviously, when he kicked off the mummy powers, they all went mental and left, so Sobek was able to scoop up the camera and all of the evidence. We summoned up this ancient spectre that, again, seems surprised that Khufu wanted to deal with it fairly and be more of a partnership rather than just I am necromancer, do what I say. And sort of agreed to give me some information about where Kazmut had gone if I took the metal plate, which I was using from Kazmut's plane, to summon the spectre. If I took it and I put it in the spectre's lair, basically, which was on a small round island in a sort of an underground sort of underwater sort of cleft or cave. We put it there. The spirit seemed quite pleased and surprised that we'd done that. Surprised that one of the Undying had acted honourably, and said it was difficult to see us working together, and obviously had been done quite badly too by the Undying in the past. But we've potentially got a ground that we can sort of work on to build a bit of trust there. We then sort of returned to the carnival. Sobek invited the Red Sparrow, Tesha Agemet, to join us, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be there anyway. Come and join me in my private lounge." We went up there, and she basically told us that because of the sort of assault we'd launched on the Urban Pacification Forces jail to break free, one of our cult members and a number of cult members belonging to the Orishas, that the people who were behind the Urban Pacification Police were out for blood, and that there wasn't going to be an end to it until they'd got their pound of flesh, basically. And she advised us to sort of head for higher ground and make what preparations we can. So we repositioned our assets. We didn't really lose anything of vital importance. And at the end of the carnival, something seemed to happen where the sort of spirit or the energy sort of seemed to just drain out of the carnival. And although it was sort of winding to a close anyway, it just didn't have the sort of the magic about it that it did originally. And that's pretty much where my notes end.
Yeah, that's where we ended. When the spirit of the celebration sort of went out in an instant, which was something both you and the Red Sparrow sensed as you were there, ground zero. So I believe the plan is to now head outside of Rio to track down Kazmut.
Yeah, the spirit sort of told us that he was in Brasilica.
Yeah,
or he'd been heading in that. Sorry, Brasilia.
Yeah, he'd been heading into, I believe, the spirit calling herself Set. The name
not ominous at all.
Mentioned that Kazmut was going to the Poison City, the capital, which you know to be in Brasilia. It is the capital city of Brazil.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I want to do before we set out on that journey is I want to have a meeting with the heads of our cult.
Mm-hmm.
And the basic purpose of that is to explain that, like, look, we're going to be attacked by another agency sponsored by the Undying. Obviously, as sort of one of the twin gods of this cult, I don't want to see the cult fragmented and destroyed. So I'm going to advise them. I want them to basically create like a sort of a shell wing of the cult, which will be sort of like very public. It'll have the accounts kept and everything like that. It'll look to the outside to be very important, but like all the people on it will be like non-essential people, like cult wise. So my hope is that when the people behind the UPF attack it, they'll attack that, they'll destroy that public wing, and we'll be like, oh no, our cult's been attacked, oh, and we'll make a big show of it, and they'll be satisfied that they've got their pound of flesh, but like our cult won't be utterly decimated by it.
Right. So I guess that's what that ends up meaning, is that the actual cult itself is sort of shuffled into the shadows, so to speak. Okay. Now, while we're waiting for Sobek to appear, Matthew, um, does that mean functionally that the cult is going to change in nature from what is ostensibly an enterprise into something more secretive? Would that be on the table here?
I think the way I'm sort of envisioning it, and obviously Sobek can definitely chip in, and I won't be doing any of this without his sort of go ahead. My aim is to basically we've always had a little bit of separation in the cult, because there's the public corporation face of it, and then there's like the inner circle who know about like the occult stuff. My aim is basically just to enhance that sort of separation, so there'll be the sort of like the outer layer sort of public face of the company, where like all of the commercial stuff, all of the sort of heritage stuff and stuff like that goes on in like a number of these different subdivisions that are very public.
Some subterfuge.
Yeah, but we're going to sort of withdraw like the inner workings, as we see it, like the important bits of the cult. They're going to be drawn more towards the inner circle and become a bit more secretive. Because even though we know that we're going to be attacked, we don't want the entirety of the public face of the cult to be decimated, because it's quite useful. But my hope is if we set up several subdivisions and we make one of these subdivisions look really important and really public, that'll be the that'll be the one that gets attacked. So we know we're going to be attacked. We're more sort of like trying to work out how we can guide this attack. And my hope is that if there's like an obvious public face of it that looks to be very important, like it's vital to the running of the organisation, that
damage control.
The UPF people will probably attack that, and then we'll put on a big show of like, although it shouldn't inconvenience us massively, what we'll do is we'll massively scale back our operations for like 5 to 6 months, so it looks as though like, oh, we've taken like a serious hit. And then once we've done that, we can gradually sort of like build it up again, so it'll look like, oh, we took a really bad hit, we're sort of clawing our way back up. But in actuality, like, we're just doing it for show. Like, we won't have taken a massive hit with our resources, but we're sort of like, we're going through the motions as though we had, basically, to try and satisfy them. Because if they're not satisfied, they're just going to keep coming at us, and we're going to be fending them off for like God knows how many years. Anybody got time for that?
It really depends if they go for all-out war or just more of a educational attack. Warning.
I suppose it depends how many forests they want like growing up amongst their buildings and like destroying them, really.
If it's of any use, you know that the well, this institution was created more or less to be a sort of militarized police specifically targeting these areas, these favelas.
Also, what I would like to do is I would like to have our company make like a sizable donation to like the UPF
Mm-hmm.
in the hope that that will appease them slightly as well. Because obviously we did damage to the building, but it's not like we like nuked the building from orbit. The building is still there.
Yeah.
So
We're
hopefully,
bad guys, but we're not
Yeah.
bad guys.
so hopefully, if we make like a sizable donation as well that they can use to sort of rebuild that, they'll get the idea that it was like nothing personal, but like don't be messing with our cult members.
Just business.
Right.
Business
We'll
time.
take that into our calculations.
Also, I would like to have a
when-
meeting with the Orishas before I go as well, so I can be like, what to
Right,
do,
okay.
Orishas?
So you've given instructions to the cult for how to do things. Basically, what is going to happen is they'll get on the accounts and do the money sorcery. Uh, but what will end up happening is they will select the most important and most sort of inducted members, and they'll just put those away. Like that, they will not be in cult properties going forward because they will be safe.
That's it. I mean,
Shuffle them around.
it's basically like that.
So-
You know when you see like when you see like a rich person or something in this, like the tax office start looking into them for like tax evasion, and they quickly sort of start like shuffling all their monies away to like places that are a bit more sort of like below the radar. It's like the equivalent of that. We know we're gonna get a bit of a shoeing at some point, so we're just trying to like preserve our most important assets as far as we see it, to make sure they're not the ones who are getting the boot.
And I presume, Sabek, you're going to advise them on how to deal with your agenda.
Yeah, well, I've got a few irons in the fire right now. I'm still trying to get information on this deathless. I keep getting the
Heartless. You're
See,
deathless.
I'm a deathless, yeah.
Yeah.
Heartless,
It's lacking something.
lacking something.
So previously, they came back with, "Oh, this is probably a supernatural creature that we're looking into.
No shit.
Travels around with an entourage, and we've spotted this creature and the entourage at the Luna Lounge on the Copacabana beach, there, which is a hotel club / bar. So that's what they came up with last time. What do you instruct them to look into this time?
Known associates, organizations either directly or indirectly owned by him or his fellows, if we can trace that well. And if he has any connections to any of the other arisen in the city, because he can't have escaped notice this long without running into at least one of the other, mummies. I mean, it's just unlikely.
It is.
Because if I'm gonna, Khufu doesn't seem as vengeful about this guy just taking down his wife as maybe I am. I think this guy has gone far too long without some kind of recompense. Sorry,
Retribution.
justice, retribution.
Yeah, some 800 years now.
Because I really liked the library that was in Sada, and for my pride, I enjoyed the paintings that I made. I thought they were nice.
Yeah, and you had a library going.
Exactly. And things were, we were making some kind of difference. Khufu likes to focus on.
I think the way Khufu's probably looking at it, for right or wrong, is that, as you say, this creature effectively like killed his wife like ages ago. But like, if he's gonna like go for like retribution, he's like left it a little bit late. assuming he didn't try it earlier and like
Yeah,
not succeed.
which we don't even know.
Exactly, yeah. So because I don't remember, I'm like, I may have already tried it. To be honest, I may have already got my retribution and been satisfied with it, but just not destroyed the creature. So until I've got some sort of like further knowledge of it, I'm not going to suddenly go, oh, it's umpteen thousand years later. Now is the time. But I can also see Sobek's point of view that this thing is obviously an abomination and it needs to be dealt with.
He's got a relic. I mean, that's just enough for me. But I've been awake for a little bit now, so I'm also aware that there could be political repercussions for me just squashing a bug as big as this. So I gotta do my research. You know.
Long as you do it covered in blood, wearing a loincloth and shouting to Moloch, you'll be fine, mate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get the gang together. Don't you worry.
Flesh for
Secret
Moloch.
God, unite! We feast on the soul.
Okay, where is your cult? Here we go.
I wanted to look into Sada as well and see what was going on there. Like,
Right, yeah.
because for all we know, that relic could still be there. Or was that before? That was before Japan, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Some hundreds of years.
Yeah. Okay. So it's unlikely to be there now.
Yeah, we know it's not still going to be there, but we don't really know where it is now because the last time we saw it was Japan, as far as I recall.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if if our lovely GM comes back and goes, Sada is now a cursed area of the world. Its hillsides have been rent. Its people have never returned, and it bears the mark of some terrible, Sekhem.
See, the thing is, that probably won't bother me.
That might imply that something happened when you opened that box.
If they say it's like haunted, though, I'll be like, oh, right.
Let's get on the ghost train.
Yeah. So let's make a roll for your cult to investigate here.
Go for it, Sobek.
Yeah. And this is me playing to this guy. He loves a good mystery, this guy. So
you need to get yourself a catchphrase, man, like a detective.
Just one more death.
Okay, so reach is what we're gonna use for this, and your cult's reach is 3. So please roll 3d10, and we'll see what happens.
Oh, for some reason I am unable to roll. The correct
You're
amount.
unable to roll 3 dice at once. You need you need to roll maximum of 2 every time. No successes.
No successes. Oh, he's a slippery customer, this one.
So what they've come back with, they will take some time, but you will have this info. They will give it to you as they get it. So they will come back with nothing can be traced to the person as far as like what do they own, which they find not really that surprising given that it's an unnatural creature wearing a human facade. So probably not anyone who's ever been in any census or registry.
Plus, he's been around for a long old time. He wouldn't survive this long if he didn't know a thing or two about keeping a low profile.
Yeah. So not really anything that can be tracked to being possessed by this creature. However, they give you the what they can find which is that this creature, whose name from previous times, well, not from your previous research, rather. So here's the fella himself. So Aristides Borges is a Brazilian man of,
wow, so they say,
getting to 50 years of age, working for the Ministry of Culture as a director at the National Library, which is located in sort of downtown Rio. Which
That's where the relic is.
Yeah, that's where the relic is, in his office on a pedestal. And appears to be someone who's went to the university, got their sort of history degree, went into further studies, got their master's, doctorate
Huh.
in sort of like historical literature. Seems to be the thing for the most part.
Interesting.
And
It's
some,
ironic
like,
because he's lived it.
maybe he's writing it.
He's writing it.
But yeah, that's Aristides Borges, divorced, no children,
Yeah, that's a surprise.
lives in the some sort of like university property that he's probably getting for cheap from the university, because he's like an associate professor there. And likes tennis, is a member in the tennis club at the university.
Pretty spry for a 50-year-old in that sense.
Yeah. And boating is a thing. Apparently owns a not like an ostentatious boat or anything, but has a boat in the marina.
Does he?
So he's fairly affluent in that regard, that he can have a spot at the marina as well. And
While they're telling me this, I'm just getting flashbacks of like Sada. Just
yeah, just like people screaming and getting cut down, like Deus vult, God wills it, kill them all, take no prisoners.
It really paints such a genteel, average, educated man.
Yeah,
who's done well for himself, despite troubling times in a city that's always been plagued by crime and drugs and trafficking of various natures.
Seems to be very much like established middle class individual.
Well, obviously he has to go. He has to go in the bin.
Take the shot.
Take the shot. It's now really a decision. Do I go on foot now? Do I step in and actually go to this library and try and take the relic, or do I try and go and speak to him? Do I have anything I actually want to say to him other than fool me twice?
my name is Sobek. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
You killed my favorite library.
Prepare to be checked out.
If he burned down my library, it would seem fair to burn down his.
Yeah, his library is the National Library, though.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a conflicted feeling, like, because that's destroying books is not what I want to do. I feel like if I steal it, he's gonna take that personally.
And there's something to be said about the fact that it's right there. It's not like in a vault or anything.
Yeah. That makes me more suspicious, like that he's confident enough that he can, anyone who experiences enough power in our sort of society, one of the tenets is, we've been able to hold things because of that power, territory, influence, sway with other arisen. So the fact that he's just floating it there kind of implies that he has enough, influence to keep it.
Yeah, and or he's fishing for something, and by something I mean mummies.
I love the way that every time Aristides Borgus gets mentioned, like it always sounds like Sobek's like talking himself up to like hating him. Like, you know, like you start off and you're like, oh, is this heartless? All right, he's in the library. Then by the time you get to the end of the sentence, you're like, oh, he's squatting amidst this knowledge that he did not earn, flicking the victory V's at those of us who have
remembering
earned
him
it.
burning down my library.
I mean, you're more annoyed about him than I am, and he killed my wife.
And considering you feel more connected to the humans now than ever, you'd think that would be reflected during you start to get
Yeah, but the thing is, for me, like, I know that death is not the end. It's just another stage in being. I know. I mean, obviously, humans they don't have any idea what's going to happen after death, whereas I've got a pretty darn good idea what happens after death. Because, like, well, we've been to Duat, although we don't really remember it, and I've dealt with like umpteen spirits.
Invitation only, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on that note, you remember your first death, both of you, by this point, and eventually we'll deal with that as well.
Nice.
We'll go through the whole thing.
I probably will debrief, even though Kufu could read the notes of could read the notes of like what the cults found. I probably will debrief him personally and just be like, you know, kind of like Khan from Star Trek. He tests me. I think he knows. He knows we have. I think we have a prior relationship in the sense that I faced him before at some point. I cannot remember, but it feels like this is a deliberate, pointed scenario to get me to come to him on his turf. He just leaves it there.
I love the fact you debriefing me about this guy when I'm sitting there wearing like a wooden mask carved to resemble my dead wife that he killed.
Yeah.
I imagine that'd be quite a bizarre scene if we were like watching.
It is.
And you probably notice I probably like instinctively sort of like put my hand up to like touch the mask as you're talking about it, as I'm obviously recalling the sort of sense of loss I felt. And after a few moments, I'll probably be sort of like there, you know, like contemplation, not really, so you can't see my face, it's behind the mask. And I'll probably very quietly say, of course I agree, brother, that this creature is an abomination, it must be dealt with. However, given everything that is currently going on, it does not seem to me that Aristides Borgus is the most pressing matter we have to contend with. I agree, it must be dealt with. I entirely agree, and the relic must be recovered. However, for me personally, it is not at the top of my list, but I understand if you have different priorities, and as always, I will attempt to support you in any action that you deem necessary.
I want to bring some kind of balance to these scales. So, Beck,
I agree.
You talk about bringing fairness to these mortals. I want to bring fairness to how he's escaped justice for so long and messed with our own plans over the years. So you're right. He can wait, but there will come a time.
I agree, brother. There will be a reckoning for this foul creature, but whereas
2077.
Whereas this creature apes a pale shadow of the true immortality that we possess, it may think itself immortal, and it is certainly long-lived, but we are true immortals. Do we not have time enough to deal with this creature at a later date? And please do not take this that I'm trying to sway you from your course. If you decide that action is needed in the more short term, then I will of course support you as ever, and will lay all of my abilities at your disposal. But this creature, although doubtless a harmful influence on the mortals, does not seem to be causing such overt harm that we need to deal with it immediately.
That we can tell as of yet.
Indeed.
It may be a more subtle knife that he is using.
You are of course correct.
Decades and centuries of experience that we've allowed.
That may be the case. However, we can only go, as ever, on the information that we possess. Perhaps, since our cult has not yielded a great deal of information, perhaps a more direct form of investigation on our behalf might yield some more information. For instance, we are told by the cult that Aristides Borges is divorced, apparently. That would suggest that it has a spouse, a partner of some kind. Perhaps they might be a good place to start to find out more about the creature, because although it may have concealed its nature from its other half, I cannot imagine that if they were married for a considerable length of time, the creature would not have exercised some form of influence on its partner.
You do have a point, and I will get the cult on that to dig out the wife's information if she still lives. Or he, it could be. It could be.
You chose some words, my friend. The cult comes back, and it takes them a bit, but it's like an hour, and you get the result, which is lamentably the former wife has been deceased.
And I'm sure for many people that would be a problem. However, if our cult can find out where his wife is buried, that is a different matter entirely, my brother.
I like the way you think. So, Kofu, I like the way you think.
For while it may not be possible for me to summon the shade of his wife back from the lands of darkness and shadow, if I can access the immortal remnants of Borges' wife, then I may be able to pose some questions to what fragments of her spirit yet cling to her mortal shell.
Yes.
Are we doing this now? Or
I mean, in Silbeck's mind, Cuff made a good point. The matters of the Arisen should take precedence. So if you want to go get Casmo, I understand this should take priority. However, if it's not going to be too long, I wouldn't mind getting a little information.
Well, my brother, I have needs to organise a meeting with the Orishas before I leave. That will take some time to arrange. If we can discover the resting place of Borges' wife in the meantime, I do not see why we could not do this before we left for Brasilia.
Sure. Makes sense.
all right, so you organize your meetup with the Orishas. Now, as was before, they are quite numerous, so it's difficult to get them all in one place at one time. And let's see, who do we have here? The Orishas. So you'll have Osoreje, you'll have Menefes.
Tower of the Forgotten Dreams.
Yeah.
I love these titles.
Yeah. You'll have Sockmist. And I think that's it.
Don't you have the leader?
Hmm?
Isn't the leader somebody different?
Their leader is nominally Osoreje, the Basalt Tower of Forgotten Dreams, also known as Ogun. So we meet in an empty favela alley with three Arisen radiating Sekhem as you do, Khufu. Now, Sobek, are you here as well, or is this Khufu's private affair?
I probably wouldn't have been here because they probably would feel more comfortable talking with him personally rather than having me with my affiliations, what they are to the,
And I entirely understand if Sobek doesn't wish to come. Like he said, it might not be wise. Obviously, I'll be going in my full sort of Gun persona, but I will still have the mask, which I'm pretty much wearing like 24/7 now. So probably only taking it off to sort of like chisel out like a few sort of rough edges and like improve it every now and again. Because I figure if you're going to go like full Harbinger or Skull style, you know, you've got to be all in them, yeah.
Yeah, you need to get polishing with the mask. So in the alley, you'll meet the trio. Sockmist greets you as a friend, as you have interacted with him quite a bit recently. Menefez, you haven't met yet, so yep.
I was going to say, obviously, I'll greet Sackmist with all the reverence and respect due to the Prince of Storms.
And yeah, Menefez, in his guise of Erenle, you haven't really met this time around. He seems quite businesslike. He doesn't put forth any effort into any of the sort of theatrics of the thing, because you're here ostensibly on Arisen business, not Candomblé business. So, and then you have Osorehe, who is in his own way projecting the power of a quiet, powerful individual. And also Rahe mentioned that the vote has been taken. Well, we've discussed this matter. Even if one of our number is away currently, but through the magic of modern humans, we have managed to conjure her voice as well from a great distance away. The consensus seems to be that your intentions may be good, but you are uncomfortably close to your brother, who is through association quite in the thrall of the secret court. And at this point, Menefez sort of steps in and says, "Indeed, quite. We are appreciative of what you have done and what you could do. This has never been really the point of contention, and I am quite aware of your activities as well. One of my cults has been a long-time resident of Mora de Babylonia, which you, now that he mentions this, you do recall the fact that Menefez's cult used to be quite a prominent feature there. But given that his cult is more into the underground gang business, as Mora de Babylonia becomes more gentrified, he had to pull his stuff out for the most part because it no longer fits in any way. Whereas your cult does, because your cult is a legit business on the front. Manifest says, there are many things that could happen in the near future. And I hope, Khufu, that you could understand the reticence. We can ill afford spies in our midst. And I do apologize for using the word, but that is the word that was thrown around as we were discussing.
Not at all. I appreciate you being plain with me.
My only business is with the facts, he says, and bows his head to you.
I return the bow and I say, I appreciate your honesty. Well, gentlemen, thank you for your time. I will take up no further. to the Prince of Storms before I leave, I would just say that I have received a word that there is going to be some pushback, I believe the humans say, in relation to freeing your cult members from the Urban Pacification Police. I'm sure it's nothing you cannot handle, given your formidable nature, but I would warn you of it anyway.
So with that, Sockmist listens, of course, as you explain this to him. He sort of he puts a hand on your shoulder, squeezes, and indicates, like pushes down, and sort of nods at you, and he walks to also Rehe and Menefes, who are sort of in a distance a little bit now that you sort of like the situation is starting to unravel, and you sort of had this last talk with him. He speed walks to Menefes and also Rehe, who are sort of like quietly whispering to each other, and he walks there. There's a lot of like grandiose hand movements, as it's no surprise to you, really. And Menefes shuts up. Is sort of stroking his facial hair a little bit, the stubble that he has, and also Rahid is shaking his head, and Sakmist raises his voice like, he has just given us information which will help us. Is this how we're going to be led?
I think at this point I'm going to sort of like, I'm going to do one of those, like, you're just about to walk out the door, but you pause and you look back, and I'm going to say again in a very sort of calm voice, and say, I could understand the Orisha's reticence, given my closeness to my brother, who, as you say, has links with the secret court. So I bear none of you any ill will for this decision. However, one last thing before I do go, I do have a small, I suppose, parting gift to present to the Orishas. Something that may help your cults. Where would you like it to be placed?
They look quite perplexed, and
It will require.
Sockmist says, "Well,
It
if
will
it's something
require an area
you need
of
to,
open ground, Prince of Storms.
well, if you need a lot of space, there is you've been to the house of one of my cultists, whereby you stored the body of Apep Medes. There is space there. The favela ends, as you know, the favela does end at that point, and then there's the sort of like hill where the jungle starts. Well, the forest of the national park.
Very well, then I will head there after leaving here, and I will leave the gift there. Do not worry, you will recognise it when you see it.
All right, and you can tell the Sockmist is pissed at this, because he's not very subtle in how
That's why I like him.
He's feeling. He nods at you and turns back to argue ostensibly with Osorehe, while Menefes stands off to the side, sort of like looks on, and you probably leave then.
Yeah, so my plan is to go straight to the place that he's specified. Obviously, I'm planning to put a magic forest down sort of behind the sort of the house, the building, because obviously I don't want to damage the building. And my plan will be, so on the way over there, I'm going to, in like Eremite, basically write a note that after I've brought the trees up, I'm going to give to one of his cultists and say, please hand this to the Prince of Storms. And the note will very sort of basically explain the effects of like the first crop of fruits from these trees, and it will say, give these to your cultists. It will fan the spark of brilliance in them and may benefit you in the future.
Right. Good. So you do that. You can mark off the pillars
Yep.
for your forest. And yeah, I did some digging, and I don't have the specifics for what kind of tree it could be to function at the altitudes we've been using this. But the fact is, it is established by Eremite sorcery, so it will work where you put it. So
Yeah, I mean, I think probably what I'll do is, as I'm heading there, I'll look at any of the natural trees around, and obviously, if I can like snap off a branch, I can plant that in the ground and make it that sort of tree. Because
mhm,
I know that Sack Mist, when he turns up and he'll be like, I don't remember there being like a small copse of trees directly behind this building. He'll know what it is and he'll get the note. But if I make it so it's the local trees, it's
mhm,
going to look less overtly supernatural rather than if someone's like, oh my god, what are a load of pine trees doing in
yeah.
Rio?
Yeah. So I think the fruit trees, because that's what they are, uh one of the baseline crops it could be is guava in Brazil. So like big, strong, like stronger than average, thicker than average guava trees, which will last for a long time and carry a lot of uh, crop. Okay, so you do that, and as you exit the favela, there is, to your eyes, really not really distinguishable from Sockmist's cultists at all. Sort of favela resident, just loafing around as you exit, but gives you a whistle, looking straight at you, and just like high pitched whistle.
I like to think what I'll have done is that before I've left the magical grove, I'll have like pocketed a couple of the fruits
Hmm.
because potentially like to give to our cultists. So when this favela resident, because I'm still in like my full like gun gear, when this favela resident whistles me, I will of course very calmly like walk over in their direction.
Yep. So the individual uh, says in Portuguese, just uh, we have a mutual acquaintance. The uh, the god of hunt, which wishes you to have this, and hand look, reaches over to you, is handing you a cheap burner phone.
I presume like has it sort of like got someone on the other end? You know, like it's like a call in progress or whatever.
No, no, it's just the phone. It's not.
I'll take it off him and then I'll just because obviously I sort of know how to use
Yeah,
phones.
you know what the object is. It,
Yeah,
it is one of these
I,
magical devices.
yeah. I'll sort of look at him and I'll say, "Please direct me how I may use this to communicate with our mutual acquaintance."
So he there's only one number there in the SIM card. So he shows you how you can use that, and it says you may call Erendle if there is uh, the appropriate time at your leisure. The god of the hunt wishes you to be aware that the gods do not always agree amongst each other.
Okay, so I'm going to look back at this cultist, I'm assuming,
Yeah,
and say,
it's basically a young boy,
yeah,
like at most like 20 years old, dressed like a favela resident.
I'll say it. And did the god of the hunt give any details about when would be the appropriate time?
Uh, if you are in need, the god of the hunt wishes you to know that you have a friend.
Thank you, and thank you for the service that you have provided. And I'm going to take out one of the magical like guava and like hold it out to him and say a small gift in return for your valuable service from a Gungun.
Oh, I possibly couldn't.
I
Please.
insist.
Yep. He takes the offered fruit.
Do not let it spoil. Eat it as soon as you can.
Right. Wanders off, taking a pocket knife and carving into the like slicing it in half and starting to eat it.
That's cool. Now, although obviously I sort of know like, abstractly like what the effects of the fruit are going to be, I presume, because it's all part of the actual sort of write up of the affinity. Obviously, I've never actually seen it used. Like I've never seen the actual effects of it, so I'm actually going to be watching him quite closely because I want to see if there's any sort of immediate effect or if I notice anything about him as he eats it.
So as you follow him around, he eats it. Of course, it takes a bit as he's walking and sort of like he's using his pocket knife, which isn't the ideal tool for eating a guava fruit, but he's sort of walking as he goes and has a bite here and there, and eventually he ends up at a very basic sort of favela bar, you would guess, like somewhere you can buy some drinks and there's a couple of cheap plastic chairs outside. He ends up buying a some kind of canned beverage, and he sits down there and he's extremely contemplative. He's sort of slicing into the guava, eating it. He's just sort of like staring into the distance. Is seems to have been hit with an extremely ponderous mood in the sense that he's deep inside his head currently. He's sort of falling into his own psyche as he sits there in this cheap dirty chair.
I think as he's doing that, I shall leave him to his contemplations and I shall disappear back into the night and go on my merry way.
Good. Okay, so now you have a phone, ostensibly from the Crimson Lion, which you can use should you wish to.
And my plan for the second fruit I have is when I get back, basically go to the cult, find our prophet, our ex-driver, and give him the fruit.
Yeah. Okay, let me find that. So we have Gustavo, formerly the driver, currently the prophet. Okay, well, yeah, he takes it, and you see the same effect repeat. He enjoys it for a time, and then starts like falling deep in thought, contemplating the mysteries of the universe, no doubt. Given that he has some actual insight into those.
And likewise, I shall leave him to his business when he's sort of contemplating, and I shall return back to rendezvous with Sobek.
So, Sobek, you've had all this information from the cult regarding Aristides Borges, and they've also, at your prompt, they've looked up Sarda, which you have been shown materials of. So Sarda is more or less like an archaeological site of some significance, which unfortunately, for the moment, is in a no man's land in the midst of the Syrian civil war. There is an ongoing conflict going on in the area, and information is like up-to-date information is not really available. If people lived in Sarda, they probably have left now. The modern inhabitants, anyway. You can still find it on a map. It's in sort of northern Syria, but the country is embroiled in a vicious conflict currently. Your cult actually struggles explaining the conflict to you because there's so many aspects to it. But your understanding is that there's a lot of conflict going around right there at the moment.
I take this in. I kind of like they're not failing, but they're struggles to explain it to me fully. I kind of said, in war, especially when it comes to me, my brother, you understand that you don't always hold all the information at the time you want it. So it's no fault of your own, of your lack of understanding at the time. It's probably not a situation we should be getting involved in at this time. However, Sada has a certain significance to me and my brother, so we're not going to leave that place forever. So I'd like you to at least make a note of it in our vault, so if we awaken in the future, I can return to this thread. To remind me I had interest there.
Right. Anything we want to deal with in Rio? Or are we off?
Obviously, I'll bring Sobek up to speed on what I've been doing.
Do you mention the forest?
Yeah, I'm not ashamed of making a magic forest.
Why should you be? I'm just amused at that was your gift to those. I wouldn't say uncultured arisen, but they may not fully ken that gift you gave them. There is some irony in that, I think.
Indeed, and the irony pleases me. I left the gift behind the building owned by Sackmist, along with a note in Eremite instructing him on how to use the first crop of fruits from the grove.
I feel you have been too good to them. Like, they have not returned your earnestness purely because I happen to have guild affiliations.
The act of giving this gift, which will potentially improve the lives of the Favela residents under their cult, the act itself pleases me, whether or not I receive any reward or regard from the Orishas from it. However, as I've just told you, although their leader Ogun is set against me, it would appear that Irenle certainly and Sackmist are more well disposed towards me. It is my hope that Sackmist will use this gift to improve the lot of his cult, and may therefore gain more power within the Orishas.
That would imply that the Orishas are fractured from within.
Well,
without a suitable obstacle for them to rile against, external to themselves, it would seem that they are unable to fully agree with each other.
Indeed, it seems to me that rather than being an organisation as such, the Orishas are a loose coalition of individuals who, as you rightly say, come together when there is an external threat facing them all, but otherwise mainly deal with their own affairs. Therefore, I believe it will be possible for me to deal with them on a one-to-one basis, even if I am not strictly a member of their merit.
Do you have any previous dealings that you recall with the Basalt of Towers? Or forgotten dreams?
Not as far as I recall, but as I said, there are at least two within the Orisha who seem to regard me as, if not a friend, a potential ally. And that will have to do for now. Unfortunately, my closeness to yourself and your ties to the secret court makes them deeply suspicious of me, which I understand, because they do not know what my motives may be in wanting to join them. They have no way of knowing that my motives are pure, so I can understand their suspicion. But I can only do what I can do and rely on them to judge me for my actions rather than my affiliations.
Do you tell Sobek everything that was
Yes.
discussed? No, nothing left out.
Nothing left out.
It's just kind of he takes. You know, if it was me and if I was at that meeting, brother, maybe I'm just more cynical than you are in these situations. Dealing with the Arisen is often a tangled mess.
True.
They get pent up on their own abilities and forget that we are all a rem. No, not one of us is truly above the other. Even the Sparrow sometimes forgets this. But it would seem that there is a thread there, like a little glint of something, like one of those tragedies that what was the Britons were fond of, Shakespearean, I think. Like it seems that they are at least tempting you to take power within that organization. It seems like there's some of the things that they have said is like their leadership is just not up to the mettle that they want, the decisiveness. There is something there, I see, and I think that they are eyeing you up as a replacement, or at least to help them take power.
I cannot judge for that. We will have to see how things play out. However, as I've said before to you, it is my belief that a gun mainly holds power whilst the Orishas believe themselves to be marginalised by the rest of Undying society, and it gives them something he can cause them to rally and rail against.
If they ever came to the parties, they understand, we have a great time.
Well, I believe if we can bring them into society, not only will we benefit from their abilities, but they will also benefit from a closer association with other Undying. But I can understand their suspicion. Therefore, all I can do is attempt to take small steps in that direction. I believe that were they to be brought into the fold, so to speak, that Agun's power within the Orisha would be greatly lessened.
I think Agun is the issue here. I think his pride is getting in the way somehow.
Indeed, and I believe that he mainly maintains power by exaggerating the rift between the rest of the Undying and the Orishas. If that rift was to disappear, I believe that his power, such as it is, would be greatly lessened. But we will see what the future may bring.
Interesting to see if there is a power struggle soon within the Orishas.
Indeed.
Not that the secret court would wish such a thing.
But it is
and you do know that Osarahe wasn't the original leader of, of the Orishas.
Well, it is plain for me to see.
As you ask the question, you do recall, as you ponder these matters in your head, it was in fact Menephes. Menephes was the leader as you knew the leaders, or you remember knowing the leaders back in the 1800s. And Osarahe came into the picture when Menephes was the only Orisha awake at the time, and the secret court fucking came into town and started doing shit. And Osarahe turned up. Menephes made a deal. They could push back against the secret court, and Osarahe ended up being the sort of figurehead from then on. But yeah, Menefes was the original.
So yes, I'll be saying that I have a line to the original leader of the Orisha, and as you may remember, it was only due to the secret court's arrival and the need to push back against that caused Menefes to make his bargain with Osrahe, that caused Osrahe to become the leader of the Orisha. I believe if that point of contention were removed or somehow lessened, he would no longer be required in that capacity. But I have only met but a handful of the Orishas to the best of my memory. Therefore, we will have to see how things play out. But it is clear that Sakmist is unhappy with the decision that Osrahe reached, and I would judge by the fact that Erin Lay has spoke to me that he is perhaps also not fully on board with Osrahe's plans. But we shall see.
You just seem to be making decisions that do not help the aims of that group. But that's...
As I've said, I believe he seeks to keep the Orishas as outsiders, because whilst they are outsiders, they will be forced to rely on his might and will look to him as a leader. Therefore, I think it benefits all of us to bring them into the fold.
Out of curiosity, Curse Master, do I know if the members of the secret court get on well with the leadership of Bantanaf? Like, do I think that we all pull in the same direction in that regard?
Yeah. All of your memories are more or less of them having, at the very least, a sort of common direction, if not outright synchronized actual team effort towards things, which clearly is not what happens with the Orishas.
Individually, they're very powerful, but they're not good at getting on point together.
Yeah, and the Secret Court, they work as a team and they have a plan. That's your impression.
Get shit done.
And of course they are, as you know, they are led by Bantanath, who is also a guild master for the scribes. So they have their shit well in hand. It's a machine that keeps going.
At least at this point in time.
Yeah, at least as you now understand them. They see, of course, if they are all awake at the same time, they can probably get up to some shit.
As an individual, each of them are messed up in their own way. But,
well,
some more than others, maybe.
Well, you know how it is. You do know how it is, yeah, because you were there.
Well, I will say that to go through. They could learn from the Secret Corps if they chose to. But I feel they will not.
I believe both organisations have much they could learn from each other, but
that's fair.
In order to do that, as with any journey, you must take the first step. And since they are both, at least for the moment, unwilling to do so, perhaps they require a gentle nudge out of the door, as it were. Perhaps that is something we can provide, given enough time.
I'm working my magic. Quite literally, I'm casting it. No. I'm joking. Yeah. I've noticed you have a bowl of fruit with you.
Actually, I don't. I've given both of them away.
You've given them all away now?
Yeah, I gave one to the favela man and one to the prophet.
What happens if we eat them, like?
I'm pretty sure they don't work on us.
Yeah, it's just fruit. You can't eat. You can put stuff, and it will go down.
It'll taste.
But it will be disintegrated when it reaches your stomach. So basically, you can put food away forever. You could just go to a feast and just because it just disappears.
Pie eating contest.
So if we ever found out an Undying who's sunk all of his money into all-you-can-eat restaurants, we could just ruin them. Just sit there for days,
just pounding away. It's what the hell?
That's just not normal.
That's not cool, man.
That's not cool.
So I'll say I believe the fruits are only for mortals. We are already far beyond the small benefits that they can provide to them.
Hmm.
But it's interesting, is it not, that a power we have been granted by the judges works solely for the benefit of mortals.
I do that half turn around, as I walk. I get what you're saying. I do not. It is not for me to question how they work. It is for me to make sure that I do what is asked of me.
Indeed, as do we all.
But it is interesting.
And I think then we probably start making our plans to head to Brasilia.
Yeah, Brasilia.
Are we not doing the bones of the?
Oh yeah. Have the cult found out where his wife, the Heartless's wife's buried?
Oh yeah. They have found the plot. Now, have you instructed them to rob the grave, or will you do it yourself?
It depends. Is that something we think our cult would be able to get away with?
You have actually increased their capability to do illegal stuff.
Indeed.
Which is now higher than their ability to do legal stuff. So you have some unsavory characters on your roster that you could call on for this sort of thing.
Necessary characters.
If it's something the cult can do, then
yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm gonna have a brief chat with Sobek, just in case he can't remember, because obviously I wouldn't expect him to know exactly how this power works.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to explain to him that if I look into the eyes of the body, I can ask it a number of questions.
Right.
But it can only answer me in terms of a yes or no, for it is but the residue of the spirit that clings to the mortal remains, and not the entirety. Is this something you still wish me to do? If it is, then you may wish to think what questions you would have me pose to the cadaver.
I always want more answers.
In which case, think on what questions you would have me ask if you still wish me to do it. But remember, yes or no questions only.
Yes or no questions.
Indeed, for it is not the full spirit of the departed that we rouse. It is merely an echo.
Okay. Right, yeah.
Do you wish to proceed?
Sure.
Okay, so you send the cult.
While they're doing that, I would like to meditate, because I would quite like to get some of my pillows back.
Yeah, so new day, new meditations, so you can roll your which one was it? I need to look. Pillars. Memory rating +5 because of your magnificent tomb.
So 11d10.
That's 3 more dots.
Boom, I'm back up to full.
So you send the cult, or well, task the cult with sending some
Send Burke and Hare out to get me the body.
Some flexible assets to get the body. And eventually someone brings you a tablet, which is a live feed to the graveyard. And what you're seeing is a grave which has been dug up, and there's the coffin, and they've opened the coffin, and there is nothing inside.
Well,
and
I am not
the
surprised.
voice on the other end is asking in Portuguese, "What should we do?"
Fill it back in, make it look as though it has not been disturbed, and then leave.
All right. And the feed cuts out.
But just before it cuts out, I'll like thank them for their service and say obviously that bit does to be compensated.
Yeah, it's like, yep. They quickly, of course, because they're in a hurry to not be caught, so they close the thing. You give them instructions and thanks, and yeah, they start closing it back up.
Well, at least it's consistent.
Indeed, it may be the case that this is simply an artifice of his created identity and that he was never actually married in the first place, and simply an empty casket was buried. Or perchance, if he was married, this heartless, then he may have realised that there could be those who would seek to use the remains of his wife against him, and he has secreted them away elsewhere.
The body, or the body never made it to a grave.
Indeed. Either way, it is beyond our reach for now.
I kind of figured there'd be something in that grave, just like maybe like a message. Yeah, like a message. You know what I mean? Just something.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like it would have been like a blade from Sada or something like that. Just like, oh yeah, I know.
So it's just like, oh, the jawbone of Talia. Shit.
I think that
like,
would. That
I
would
know
rouse,
you're on my trail.
I think that I've probably triggered my vice, to be honest.
Yeah, that would rouse his anger a little bit.
That might have been a bad time.
I tell you what, you would have thought I'm lucky so, but there isn't in there because that library would have been getting a beating if it had been in there.
Like, I'm down with you. Like,
I'd be like, do you remember that library before a giant forest burst up and ruined it?
I usually turn around instead of burning it down. You're like, no, I will build a forest there.
So, with that, is there any more you want to get up to in Rio? For the moment, of course, we will revisit some shit. But
I'm gonna get some peasants on the street to egg this guy's window. I've had enough of his.
Okay.
I love that with all our like undying powers, you're like peasants throw an exit his window. That'll teach you. Thus my vengeance is complete.
That'll show him.
That'll teach him.
the immortal blasphemy. Yes. Okay, well, your cult can certainly arrange for your trip to Brasilia. And actually, what happens, I think, is they will get you a driver and a nice car. And you can sit in the back and they will drive you to Brasilia.
Yeah, it's all nice having a driver, but it's not like Gustavo, is it?
Yeah, it's not the same.
It's not.
Okay, let me just quickly check with the wonderful technology that we have access to. Mm-hmm. So we're going from Rio to Brasilia. Okay, so that is quite the trip. It's like 1,200 kilometers, so that will take a bit, but that's like a day and a half for the driver.
It's not like sunlight's going to burn us or anything.
Yeah, no, it's
fine.
It's fine. So I think you're gonna take a break at we're gonna take a break at a cheap roadside motel on the way, and the driver is sleeping. Of course, he can just continue after some hours, so you'll arrive at Brasilia fairly quickly anyway. But it takes you like 15 hours to get there by car. All right, so I have some pictures here of the capital. So here is what is called the monumental axis, which is a sort of central feature of the city. Did you ask? I know that we didn't talk about it at all, but did you ask your cult anything about Brasilia before he went, or where it's like, oh, we need to go there, arrange? Did you look into the city at all?
Well, I think given that I'm more of a sort of like the way is clear, this is the action we must undertake. I probably wouldn't have done. I don't know if Sobek would have done. I'd have probably just been like, arrange travel cult, brilliant, Carl, let's go. But I don't know whether Sobek would have done, because he's more of a sort of planner than I am, whereas I'm a bit more sort of like, the path is in front of us, let us walk it. So I suppose that's down to you, Sobek.
I would have probably asked for a little bit, but I don't know if my questions would have been helpful.
Okay, so what would those be?
Mine would have been, are there any alchemists? Is there any other arisen, basically, would have been my, apart from Kazmut that we were aware of. Because we're essentially, with Sobek sort of sees things, the globe, like divided by areas of arisen control and politics. Like that's his mindset, if you understand. Like that's what he's talking about before. He's merely concerned with arisen affairs, being a scribe and names and things. So he hasn't got a problem with morals, but it's just not where his focus is. And that's what he'd probably want to know. Like, is there going to be, a really difficult arisen there that they've had problems with in the past? Or is there someone like an old friend we could check in while we're there and just touch base, Because we're on a Sothic turn, I'm not there. I don't have to necessarily, not in an urgency at this point, so good time to get some pointers.
Yeah. So your cult informs you that, as far as they understand, there are no arisen in the capital.
Interestingly worded. Okay.
And never has been, as far as they understand. Brief history. Before the late 50s, it was basically just like desert and some other terrain as well. But they created the city in 4 years, and they finished it in 1960. They created it in 4 years out of nothing into the sort of inland of the country. Before that, the capital had been Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
In the 60s, in the late 50s, they started a project of building a new capital, and they finished it in 1960. And that's when the history of the capital starts.
Relatively new
yeah,
city.
It is, for you, it might as well have been built yesterday. So
you must have built an extra water source then, if it was merely desert.
Yeah, there is a lake called
I sort of see it in that picture you said.
Lago Paraná there. But yeah,
it does strike me as somewhat poetic that Kazmut, who's trying to sort of divorce himself from the ancient tradition or sort of throw that off, has chosen to go to a city that's only existed for the merest blink of an eye, as far as we're concerned.
But that just might be because there's no other arisen there to interfere with him.
Your cult says that they understand that it's a place intentionally avoided by the arisen, but they don't have the specs for that. But they know that you haven't really been very eager to go there in the past.
So there's like
a
reason we don't go there, but
there is a reason. They don't know it. They don't have basically you've just indicated that the few times that it's even been discussed that you don't really you understand that you've probably been there before, which is the reason why you also are reticent to go.
You might want to give the Red Sparrow a ring on the phone, so back and just be like, just wondering,
Is there a reason?
Brasilia, any reason why there's no arisen there? Like magic wards?
Any reason why the nation's capital has no mummies in it?
And it's 4 years old. You know, I feel like there's something. And I don't want to just go straight to supernatural problems. It could just be that they've got their established power base.
Or
You know what I
PR.
mean? Yeah. We know Kazmud's there, and he's been all right.
Well, we don't know if he's all right. We know he went in that direction. The thing is, we know that the Arisen love getting their fingers in as many pies, influence-wise, so to speak. The fact it's been there 4 years, it may just be no Arisen have been awake long
Tell you
enough
what,
to go there and do it.
I don't really want to lean on the Red Sparrow too much, right? Because I think she appreciates people who get stuff done. You know what I mean?
If only you were associated with some sort of court that could maybe find out some secrets or something.
Yeah, I'm saying that, but you've got this dandy number of a guy in the Orishas. You could just have a little, just ask him, just touch base.
It was made clear to me that I should only contact Irenley when I was in need. I do not believe this qualifies.
Okay. Do just a mental kind of okay, which of the secret court will actually answer my question fully, honestly, and without strings attached?
Yeah. Who in the sacred court might that be?
Do I owe any favors? I'll try. Oh God, I'll try and touch base with Bantanath.
Either that, or I would suggest perhaps Sakons.
No, I feel like Sakons have got more history than I can recall right now.
You could also ask the Red Sparrow, as you have direct lines to her.
Yeah, all right. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, well,
if you're struggling with this secret court, which has ostensibly proven itself to be very suspect.
Yeah, it's tough.
Should I ask them for the truth? If you're struggling with that, you have some other options as well.
So at the moment, me and the Red Sparrow are on at least decent terms. She's returned my call. So I'll attempt. I'll see, but I don't want to play my hand here too much because, I don't want to make it obvious what we're up to up here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll see. I'll see if we can get a response. Just because I'll be more like, is there anything I should be aware of, like why there is no Arisen up here? It's just something that no one seems to have any information of, almost as if it's intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like.
So, do you call? Do you send a text message?
I'll do the thing where I'll get my cult to just check in and see if she's available for a call.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to be polite because she's technically my boss.
Yeah. That can be arranged.
And then I'll say, do you have time for like a 10-minute conference call?
Mm-hmm.
Or we're driving across the country.
Yeah. Okay, so you're in the car.
Yeah.
doing this.
Ignore all the forests popping up in Rio. We don't know anything about that.
Yeah, we have some trees in the car. Yeah. Guava in the back. Mm-hmm.
I'll just check in with her, and we can play the whole thing out if you want. But
just give me the sort of.
So
I'll
start with I'll start with polite. It's good to hear from you again. Thanks for taking my call. That kind of things. Really glad you came with us to the festival. I just wanted to have a quick, just collab with you for a second. Just regards that I've got some business up in the capital of Brazil, and my cult has just been informing me that there is no Arisen here that we're aware of, and it seems completely a power vacuum of any kind of both the secret core and the Orishas. So it just seems suspect to me, and I feel like you may, if there's something like a big either. There's a reason we don't go there, and we're about to walk into something that you know dutifully tell us this.
Well, you're well. None of our memories are particularly distinct, probably because,
Mhm.
well, as you have stated, not a lot of us have spent a lot of time there. The city itself is problematic. Um,
In what way?
the natural flow of Heka and the life web of the city are, in a word, abrasive, I would say, from my own recollections. It is not a place for us.
Interesting.
Inimical, you could
So I
say.
should not spend too long there.
That is up to you and your tolerance for suffering. She gives a slight laugh. Sabek, it is not that you are walking into any trap set by the lifeless. This is a city that was built some decades ago, well, by mortal hands, but guided by the architects of Rio. Uh, whatever happened there happened, but it is not a trap for the arisen that you're walking into. It is merely an unpleasant place,
Okay. Will I
which is
know this
why
when I
you will not
arrive?
find arisen there.
Well,
What does your business concern, if you don't mind me asking?
we're following up on a lead uh,
I like to
to
think at this
locate.
point, as someone who's like forward and sort of could probably do with regaining a couple of willpower points. At this point, I'm just gonna interject and some sort of sound next to him, and he described it as a conference call, and I'm just going to be, we are trying to locate our estranged merit member Casnut.
Really now, and he is in Brasilia.
So I'm led to believe.
It would seem so. Say with a slight sigh.
There are many surprises in that one.
It would. I feel that we have only scratched the surface if we're going to a place that is bereft of arisen on a sensibility sense, and yet you maybe here.
It is quite concrete, I seem to recall. It is more than aesthetics. You will know.
Huh. I shall take the appropriate level of apprehension. I thank you for taking this call and indulging our questions.
Yes. Yes, I do not mind these little calls that we have. We are, after all, working towards the same goal. And the more that I remember, it is an ongoing project across the centuries. So
Mm.
it is only natural. We have provided assistance to one another many a time.
Each stone can take a century to lay. If we are building something until it bears fruit.
Right. Well, I would wish you luck, but we know that that doesn't exist. So hopefully the fate is favorable to you.
And well, I will see, and I will. If fate is kind, if such a thing is possible, I will only have to spend a small amount of time here if it is corrosive to my
Hmm.
sense of self.
Good. I look forward to our next meeting.
Until then.
Ba-doop.
Boop. I kind of feel like the city's cursed, brother. Maybe not with magic, but by design. Cursed to ward us away, to keep us out.
Well, if
That's how it sounded
it
to
is
me.
cursed to ward us away, then that will not be a problem. We will simply not be able to
How
enter.
the audacity of mortals to think that they could bar us from anywhere on this earth.
It seemed to me, brother, that from what the Red Sparrow told us, that they have not deliberately built it to keep us out. It is simply a place that is not comfortable for us, perhaps because it is so recent and has been built entirely by human hands without the input of the Arisen.
I will highlight that what the Red Sparrow said was it was built by people, of course, because there's not a lot of mummies to go around, but the people
The
behind the
architects of
thing were
Rio.
the architects from Rio, of which you know some. Uh, Chief among them, Ibsheta. You have intimate knowledge of him.
Yeah.
You also know that Hamset, the Hand of Azar, is
Yeah.
is an architect. You know that Amund Ruby, your friend
Yes.
with the steel chair, is also.
He's an architect of chaos, that one.
Yeah, and do you know any others? At least those three, you know, that are architects.
Maybe they did something foul here. I'd like to say I'm surprised. But I do like their pleasures. Well, I suppose we'll have to see if Kazuma has decided to hole himself up here.
Indeed, we will see what we see when we arrive there.
Let us stop off and get some takeaway.
So,
Can't go to a cursed city in an empty stomach.
so we jump to your arrival. Let me refer to my notes here. So, yeah, there's the picture of the monumental axis, which is the sort of central through line. This sort of a green stripe, which houses at the end, amongst other things, the parliament and various government functions. The city is, because they had the opportunity to basically plan out the whole thing from the start. The city has quite clear segments built, and of course, there's some organic, quote unquote, growth there as well. But they laid out a number of sort of sectors almost, to the point where, for example, there's a clear sector for hotels, which are all in the same general area. On one point at this monumental axis, and the city has a lot of modernist architecture, some of which you can see on the picture there as well. There's the Cathedral of Brasilia, which I've just put up now. There's the cathedral and the bell tower, which are quite distinct indeed. The city
That's nice.
is quite different in a number of ways because it was planned. It is so new, and the architects that they brought in put in a lot of distinct modernist touches on it, so that the bridges and these like big monumental buildings are all very highly stylized in that way. And of course, the layout, the zoning of the city as well is quite distinct indeed. And as you enter the bounds of the city, you immediately start feeling just not good. Like it's not a good, pleasant place to be. It sort of almost scratches at you.
Yeah, I'm gonna flick on my various sites.
No,
Nothing.
no, it's something more fundamental than
You sense that, brother?
you do. You do. It feels
Yes.
like a bad place to be. Unpleasant, scratchy, annoying. It grinds at you. It is inimical to you on some quite fundamental level.
Can I don't know if I can if my thing here can actually confirm this, but obviously I'm not an architect. However, I do have the encyclopedic knowledge thing of ancient
From ancient Iran. Yeah.
Yeah. So does this like is this reminiscent of a remnant like architecture?
This would be the negative of Iran.
Perhaps that is why we feel so uncomfortable, brother. This is our origins are ancient indeed, and this city stands for all that is modern and is as far removed from ancient Iran as it is possible to be.
Why would they do something like that?
It feels wrong on some fundamental level that is quite tangible to you, and you don't remember this being the case anywhere else in your lifetimes that you can recall. Something has gone wrong with this city. Clearly, someone messed up big time, and of course, you don't exactly know what that is, but someone else might be able to have more understanding to it. But your respective specialities are just
We're too fresh to this place. Didn't have any idea
Yeah.
why. But yeah, I just thought maybe it was like kind of one of those weird things where if we get close to actual Eremite architecture, it's like almost it's like it has a weird overpowering effect, and it's like it affects us by unsettling us. But you know, it seems the opposite of that.
I think,
yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, I think at this point, obviously seeing that Sobek is quite concerned and there's like a misguided attempt to reassure him, I'll probably say something like, well, irritating, grinding against our sensibilities, I can certainly see why Ibsheta would have had a hand in it.
It's true enough.
Yeah, the Red Sparrows seem to intimate that there's something wrong with the life web of the city, which you know the term. It is something that you have, like, you need to know and understand because of your tomb as well. Every tomb has its own sort of sub life web, which is a part of how you are resurrected as well.
How magic flows around you.
Yeah, basically, life web is just that. It is the web of life in the area that the particular web is in. And on the macro scale, cities have that as well. And then the Red Sparrow was basically saying something went really wrong with the life web of the city.
Okay, so
she doesn't know what it is apparently, but
so obviously we're feeling these effects. So to a certain extent, like say, we're aware we can potentially sense this life web. Now, sort of, if it's analogous to like an actual web, they tend to like radiate out from a central point. So as we arrive in Brasilia and we're sort of wandering around, you know, where we've got a description of the chasm, or we'll probably be asking local people, like, etc. Do we notice like any particular areas where we feel more this sense of unease and discomfort?
No, it seems to have the same intensity everywhere, and of course, a part of the situation here is that both of you lack the actual expertise to figure this out. This is entirely out of your wheelhouse.
I do have things figuring out enigmas, but I don't know if this.
Yeah, that's a different deal. You would like the actual answer for this would be to bring an architect here and have them figure this shit out because this is their thing.
I just give him shit a call and be like, "What did you
Yeah,
do?"
it's like, what up, party in Brasilia?
So quick
Wait,
question.
is Casmo an architect?
No, he's an engraver. He's the
Graven idols.
sorry.
Yeah, because he deals with like the graven idols and stuff like that.
Yeah,
doesn't he?
he's Markep. He's the second hand, basically the supervisor, taskmaster, and also kind of secret police and spy. They're very complex in their whole thing.
Okay, so quick question. I'm incredibly sort of well up on like various occult things, obviously, particularly superstitions.
Yep.
Going on the idea of sort of like ley lines, lines of power, which are obviously well established in sort of superstitions. Do I see anything noticeable as we're walking around the city that makes me think, oh, something's been done to like influence the ley lines or?
Yeah. Again, the you would have to be an architect to understand the Eremite stuff more, but you have the basic idea, and every mummy does, and you have some extra on top as well. And it definitely seems to you that because this was crafted from nothing some decades ago, someone would have had the opportunity, if they also had the understanding, to leverage or not said ley lines. And the great monumental axis here in the picture, it doesn't take you long to look at that and say, yeah, that's probably something that if the people making this were aware, that's probably their attempt to do something with that kind of thing. And the layout of the city otherwise as well, because they had basically free reign to use whatever geomantic stuff they would have known about. So you can see plenty of opportunities, but yeah.
Yeah, like you say, the actual Aramite stuff's a little bit beyond us 'cause it's not our
Yeah, the
specialty.
actual Eremite stuff is unfortunately the literal guild mysteries of the architects.
Yeah.
So this is something that you would not even have been taught, because that is the trade secrets of someone else.
Not for you.
Yeah, much as your own necromancy stuff is not really known
So,
outside of your guild.
assuming we can't track Casmut using our sort of mystical senses, I think we'll probably just be
You
going.
could,
Oh.
yeah, just walk around.
Yeah, I was going to say
you can sense the second.
that would be the plan, because we know there's like no arisen pretty much in this place. So basically, if we like, I don't know, like hire a local guide or like the equivalent, get them to take us
Take a
around the
helicopter
city,
ride around
and
it.
if we get like the merest like whiff of like Sekhem, we will follow it, because like if there's no mummies here and he's come here to like get away from the rest of the arisen, he shouldn't be too difficult to locate. And obviously, if we don't find any signs of that, we know what he looks like, so we can just ask in the normal method, like, oh, have you seen a guy who looks like this? Because presumably he's going to stand out a little bit from like the local people, given his appearance. So he should be fairly noticeable. So that's going to be our plan, sort of like explore as much of the city as possible with a local guide, keep our nose out for any like whiff of Sekhem, and also like ask people if they've seen anyone matching Casmut's description.
I am checking that I've obviously brought a gun with me because that's my dealio, a nice big gun. I'm checking it's loaded. I'm just saying, brother, I just want you to be concerned, brother. Like every moment I spend here, the more I think that there has to be something dearly wrong with Casmo to live here.
And I think probably the only weapon I'm carrying is like the sort of like ubiquitous like wooden staff that I'm normally sort of like walking around with. So I'm just wearing a wooden mask and like a wooden staff, and you're like there with your piece. You're like cult peacemaker or whatever. Which I presume you're keeping tucked out of the sight rather than just walking around like.
The arisen can fair prey to.
That is quite true. But we will explore the city.
I do not like this place.
Nor do I. It grates on me. but we will explore the city. If we do not find sign of Casmut, we can leave. If we do find sign of him, we will say what we have to say, and then we will leave.
You take your time going around, and it does not really take you a long time. You watch some of the sites, of course, because there's some interesting locations around, especially the monumental axis. And one segment, indeed, of the monumental axis is for hotel usage, as I mentioned before. And there, your trail leads to a hotel called the Windsor Brasilia, which is a kind of tower made from glass and white paneling. It has a court of palm trees and paving stones at the front, benches, that kind of thing, cars lined out, cabs, and an open, inviting front door that opens into, of course, the reception, and then there's the cafe, restaurant, bar sort of area, which looks out to the sort of garden front as well. And you sense an arisen inside, probably in the restaurant area somewhere.
I think we'll definitely be making a beeline for the restaurant then.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you stroll in. There's the the folks at the door. It's like, welcome to the Windsor Brasilia, good sirs. Can we do you have luggage that we can take care of?
No, that's fine, but thank you.
All right.
And I have everything I need.
They watch Khufu come in with his mask and staff like a wizard. Yeah, and you go into the restaurant. Now, there is a sort of corner table in the back next to the massive glass walls looking out to the garden, where you find Cosmo sitting at. I'll bring out the picture if I have it. There we go. So we have Cosmo.
There he is.
We have Cosmo. He does have a coin, as is his wont. You recall, he usually has something to fidget with, and he's doing that with a coin. Currently, as he's sitting there, he has a cup half full of coffee in front of him, and he looks up as you walk towards the table.
I'm just going to sit down at the table and then say, Casmut.
Sobek, do you shoot him in the head?
I just sort of, we're at a cafe, aren't we?
Yeah, the sort of cafe, restaurant, bar, lounge.
I'm gonna get myself a drink. I'm gonna get Khufu a drink, and I'm gonna get Kazma a drink, as if I am invoking a sort of hospitality thing.
Yeah. What drink do you get?
Ooh.
If it's based on your sort of opinion of Casman, I'm assuming it's something better.
I'm gonna get him an iced coffee because he's some kind of fool. Coffee should be hot and dangerous.
Like you had to take a good thing and make it bad.
Yeah, good thing I'm making exactly. For Khufu, I think I am gonna get him a sort of a probably a cappuccino actually, as he's become fond of the mortals over the years and may enjoy their new inventions. I'm just gonna get a a black coffee with a tiny bit of syrup in it.
A black coffee with bitters in it. Right. Okay. So you bring over the drinks, and Cosmos nods, and he says, "You've gone through a lot of effort. Hello."
Greetings.
Pick an interesting place to reside in this turn.
Hmm. It's not really for residents. You understand?
Are you
Not
trying to make
really
a
a place where
statement?
one wishes to stay.
Indeed. Let me be frank with you, Casmut.
Can I still be Sobek?
I don't understand.
Uh,
Allow me to speak plainly with you, Casmut. Your actions when last we met were regrettable. Some would even say blasphemous. And I'm sure you can understand that we were obliged to respond. However, that has been done. As far as I am concerned, we have dealt with your transgression, and our prior relationship goes back far further than the recent unpleasantness. It seems to me wasteful for us to bear any enmity towards each other going forward. After all, and I'll switch into Eremite at this point, are we not immortals?
Well, that's quite surprising. I wasn't really expecting that of all things when he walked in. Sobek, what do you think? Does Khufu speak for you as well?
take a sip of my coffee. Consider my words. Uh, since we're dealing honestly, I think the path that you were on is one of foolishness, possibly damnation, Casimir, but my brother keeps reminding me that you have been a good friend to us over the centuries, and the more that we remember, we have a shared plight, and I would not want to give you a chance to come back to the fold, for you have not been exiled, you have chosen this yourself.
Indeed. And while our departure was, of course, such as it was, I did make note of the fact that ultimately your objection wasn't with me leaving. And I have appreciated that.
Indeed, that is correct. Our objection was solely with the action that you took against our cult and our persons. Let me pose you a question, Casmut. Were we to ask you to return with us, would you resume your activities, your attempts to destroy our cults and to take what relics are ours?
That is difficult to answer because the point of anything that I did was to facilitate my going away. So I wouldn't be doing anything against you or yours because I have already left.
Very well, I understand, and thank you for being honest with us. It is, whilst I see the logic in your actions, it is not my wish to entirely sever ties with you. After all, we have a long and relatively fruitful history between the three of us here, do we not?
He nods, and he actually perks up a little bit, um, seemingly because you seem to indicate, oh, I remember things from our shared past, which of course we didn't really have time to get into last time because we were kind of busy with why are you trying to destroy our cults and our relics?
Indeed.
um, but he perks up a little bit and actually like seizes that thought and says, "Yes, yes, Kufu, Sobek, I remember many lifetimes. I remember us,
Indeed.
different places, different times, different servants, followers, whatever it was at the time."
Indeed. And
And
whilst it
yeah,
may not be possible for you to return, or you may not wish to, if you are set on the course that you now follow, I would needs at least be able to stay in touch with you. I have been given, and I'll sort of take out like the phone that the cult gave me. I have been given one of these devices, which I believe can be used to stay in touch with people. I would use this to contact you if you were unable or unwilling to return, and nor would I seek to force you to do so. However, if you are prepared to moderate your actions so they are not harmful to other undying, I would let you know that the way is open for you. I believe, given our shared history, it is the least I can do.
so do you offer him a phone?
Well, I was just going to like show him the number on the phone.
Oh,
I presume he's got his
yeah,
own.
yeah, yeah. So, uh, yeah. So he can take if you're showing him a phone number, he can take that down, and he says, "See, this is why, regardless of what you may have thought at the time on the airstrip or now, this is why what I have been doing is so difficult, and you are not making it easier being here now. But nevertheless, I do appreciate that, and I want you to know that. Whether you believe it or not, that is up to you." I won't be coming back to Rio. You remember something, that much is clear. I do too. I remember lifetimes of tragedies, trying to do the judge's work, most of the time safeguarding some terrible, powerful relic, and everything has always become undone. And our service, such as it has been across the centuries, what we have achieved together is like building monuments from dust to a long forgotten memory. He's stirring his new coffee that you brought him, Sabek. He's not drinking it. He's
I'm just
getting into
watching.
his stride now that Khufu fed him some memory juice.
I'm going to say to him, of course, I also remember my fair share of tragedy, and I'm going to take the mask I'm wearing off and like put it on the table between us.
So he notes this, and as you put it on the table, he says, "I sometimes think of her and what happened to her as well."
As do I. But I can console myself with the fact that whilst there may be a fair amount of tragedy in our long lives in the service of the judges, had it not been for the judges blessing me with this immortality, then I would never have met her, nor had all the many moments of joy that we spent together. If it were not for the right of return, we would also now be nothing but a long forgotten memory and dust.
But to what end is all this, though, Khufu? Sobek, my friends, if you can't tolerate me calling you that still.
I don't make any movement at that. I just
It's like,
stare.
we shall see. Even the relic that I recall being so important at one time is now lost. I remember nothing of it. It hasn't been something of importance in a long time, even though it was at some point. I remember innumerable defeats and empty victories tied to something that seemed at the time to be the most important thing in existence. Now, that has also been lost. Look around you, my friends. And he gestures towards the, like, out to the garden where you see more of these, like, glittering glass and steel hotel buildings, and the immaculately designed garden area with people, tourists as well, enjoying their drinks and little bites to eat in the shade. Look at this place. We have, to no appreciable end, we have done what we have and suffered what we have been subjected to for centuries. And look, humankind has achieved crafts that make those of Irem seem entirely insignificant. Did you know about planes before you arrived at the airstrip? They have conquered the flight of birds.
It is true they have achieved wonders after their
In
own
mere
fashion.
decades. In mere decades, they have conquered the sky, Khufu. He shakes his head, sort of half between, like, being incredulous and like, sort of despairing.
At which point I'm going to reach out and sort of replace the mask on, and then I'm going to say, I've spoke recently long and many times to my brother, and I gestured to Sobek, about my belief that the reason for the pain and suffering that we go through is not innately a fault of the judges. It is how we interpret their will. It is my belief that, given the powers we possess, it would be possible for us to help humanity greatly and increase their potential for doing much good. But yet we're too wrapped up in our own schemes. As I've said to my brother, if it was solely the judge's wish that we devoted all of our time to retrieving relics, then we would be capable of nothing else. And yet, every time the Sothic wheel turns, we awake with no compulsion, free comparatively to do what we will. And yet many of our kind fall back into old patterns. As you have said, humanity has achieved wonders working on their own. How much more wondrous could their achievements be if they were supported by those who have the memories of history and the knowledge of ages stored within their minds?
He shakes his head. He sort of nods at times, and as you end, he shakes his head and says, there is a thought of doing something to help them on their way. I know that we have, and he gestures at you too. I know that we have had this before. We had it at Sarda.
Indeed.
But look again. Even this place, which was made by our brothers and sisters from Rio, this young city is entirely uninhabitable. Its construction rotten. It is tainted, and that is the fate of everything we touch. We bring nothing, whether we intend it or not. At Sarda, as much as here in Brasilia, we bring nothing but cruelty and suffering. These people are as much affected as us three around this table right now, in their own way. They are driven by the corruption built into the very streets of this city by us. We spoil the world, and we are lashed forward to go and steal from the ruins.
There is wisdom in what you say, Casmut.
He's sort of getting into it. He's sort of like really sort of like preaching at you, but he's also kind of crumbling at the same time. Like it's not pleasant for him to say these things aloud.
I'm going to put out, and it's what I hope's a comforting gesture, just put a hand lightly on his arm and say, there is wisdom in what you say. It is my belief that any seed born of tainted fruit cannot help but grow into a twisted tree. Perhaps the reason why this place is tainted or ruined is because the motives of those who sought to build it were not pure. For all that Sarda eventually crumbled and was cast down by those zealots, whilst it existed, it was a small beacon of light, because our motives were pure when we created that place. We did not seek to do it for some grand ends as part of some long, far-reaching scheme. We simply sought to create a place where humans could live alongside ourselves in peace, and we did not do it because it was part of some grand plan. We did it because it was the right thing to do. It is my belief that many of our kind have forgotten this, and that if we could reclaim this knowledge and seek to help humanity, not because we believe we will gain from it, but because it is the right thing to do, then perhaps both of our kinds could prosper.
I have wanted this, as I know you have, both of you. Even though, Sabek, you hold your peace now, as you have so many times before. But not always. You have also, I remember, shared in this. And I want it to be true today as well. And you can start, you can see him actually, he starts weeping as he says this. His Sahu generates tears for him.
Let me propose something to the two of you. Is there any reason why the three of us gathered here, especially now that myself and Sobek have recovered the knowledge of bringing life from barren land, is there any reason we cannot build a new Sarda?
As you have regained your recollections in Rio, He trails off there, and he licks his lips, and he's pondering how to phrase the following. Did you at any time feel as if you were contacted by a spirit of some kind?
A presence, yes.
He nods, and seems to relax a bit.
Specifically when we recalled Sarda and that later business in Japan.
I was going to say there was more than one occasion he showed up.
I was awake before you, and I presume this means that I had more time. I know that I had more time to remember. And he continues weeping as he talks. He's stopped flipping the coin now. And he says, I have recalled bits and pieces of these lives. For some reason, I recall an artifact that we thought was so important that we had to do many things to guard it and whatnot. And I remember one thing that we did after we brought it to Sarda to keep it safe. We put it in the cave. You may recall the cave. I wasn't there when Sarda was burned.
No.
But I have remembered some of the aftermath. And Khufu, when you say, should we be able to, or is there any reason stopping us from building a new Sarda? I ask you, do you remember what happened when you went into the cave when the Sarda was burning?
No, I do not.
Do you?
By the time it was done, he starts with saying we, and then he focuses his gaze on Khufu. You had created a breed of monster that pillaged the entire province from the ashes of Sarda. You took the ashes of our greatest achievement that I can recall, and you turned it into a blasphemy. And we have the blood of all those villages. And across the centuries, because these monstrosities are lifeless, they still exist. They still pillage, and the bloodshed started in Sarda never ended because of us, because of you, Khufu. And there's no sort of accusation in his voice, like that isn't his point at all. He's not trying to throw blame. He's trying to claim blame, if anything. We and you have inflicted a wound on the world that is bleeding centuries after. So when you say, should we build another one? I say no. I say we cast away what we have and we find a better way to be, because we bring cruelty and suffering and nothing else. And this is why I cannot return to Rio, because I remember what we have done. And I need to not do that again.
There is logic, and I sound quite strained when I'm saying this. There is logic to what you are saying, Kazmat, and I agree that finding a better way would be preferable. But if, as you have said, we have caused these creatures to roam the world, should not part of finding this better way be to attempt to heal that wound and prevent any further bloodshed?
I have killed some. I think we have killed some. But it is too far gone now. There's not enough time for us in this world to do that. We might catch some here and there. Some exist in Rio, this much I know. I didn't realize it before I remember it, that this is what they were. Centuries before, I was killing and casting out Amkata and other lifeless that wandered into Rio, drawn no doubt by the fountains, much as we were. They are prey to the same lures that we are, and I remember slaying some. But there's too many, and they are too adept at using humans to shield themselves. So I suppose, in a way, I have decided that that particular wound has gone beyond our ability to heal, and I'm satisfied with not making it bleed faster. He sounds entirely defeated, by the way. Like this has obviously inflicted some tremendous
pain on him.
yeah, this is a massive burden on him.
Is there a way to detect on an arisen how much memory they have? Like how
Not not by any technique you might learn from the Jedi. No, it's very few things can do that kind of especially on others. It's not really something common.
I'm going to say to Kazman again, very strained, although there may be many of these creatures, are we not immortal? Is it not the right and just thing that we should attempt to prevent them causing further harm, no matter how long that may take us? We could, if we are to simply accept defeat, had we may as well not cast ourselves into duat and save the world its troubles. We could do that, and we would be guilty of exactly what you have been describing. Or we could attempt to right the harm that we have done and try and become better than we are now.
I agree. And I have my way of going about it.
Well then, Kazmat, join us, and together, if we pool our efforts, surely we will be more efficient at dispatching these creatures.
I need to cure myself before I can attend to the world, my friends.
is this the right place to do such a thing?
No, I am not staying here. I am obviously not staying here. He starts wiping his face a little bit, but the tears being manufactured by the Sahu just basically disappear as he brushes them off.
If what you've said is true, Casma, then I am responsible for these creatures. Then I will not be able to rest until I have righted that wrong. For although my actions in Sada were born out of pain, grief, and loss, it is not right nor just for the world to suffer for the actions of those few who cast down Sada.
Would it interest you to know that the person that attacked our town so long ago currently resides in Rio, living a mockery of a human mortal life?
Something of interest, yes. Something I would attend to right now, no. I hope that you would be able to do something about that upon your return to
I'm working on it.
Rio.
If, as you have said, I was responsible in part for creating this creature, then I must deal with it.
Not this creature, you weren't. It arrived before destruction of Sada.
It is difficult, he says as he brushes his eyes. It's difficult to remember. Some things are very clear, and this particular thing I have strained for, my friends, and I do not have the full picture of it.
This was the catalyst to its immortality.
Indeed, we know, brother, that the man whose appearance this blasphemous creature now wears was responsible in part for the destruction of Sada. But who is to say that it was not the artifact and my tampering with it that cursed it with this blasphemous half-life?
And this is not blame. I said there would be unintended consequence from such an act.
Indeed, and unfortunately I was too blinded by grief and loss to listen to your wise words at the time.
And this is what I do not want. I want to break the cycle. It has to end at some point. At least that is my faint hope, my friends, that we could stop all of this, or at least our part in it, so that we may not strive into the future and set forth these cycles of violence and death and misery by our sheer existence. Khufu, I think I remember who you are, and this is not something you would design, but it is what happens when we act, because this is all we are, even without intent. And I don't want that for me and the world. And I have a way to maybe address this. And with that, for that end, I will not be staying here, Sabek. I will indeed be traveling elsewhere. I would already have, but there was a bit of an accident with my plane, he says, and smiles.
I am interested in what you have to say about your way of preventing this cycle, but I feel that I must think fully on what you have said before we have further discussions. Perhaps if I can take your details through which I can contact you, we can discuss this further.
Yeah, he gives you his phone number. Because of course he doesn't have an address and he will be moving, so...
I suggest, brother, that we get a room at this place and we sleep on our discussion and perhaps continue it when we have had a chance to think fully on what has been said.
Perhaps, yes. But I must say this city does not inspire rest in me.
Oh yeah, it feels like sandpaper on your soul. But very, very sort of light sandpaper, but it's constant, like
Just the
just
top. Just the top.
just swiping at your soul.
How soon do you plan to leave Brasilia, Casman?
There are some arrangements still that I need to attend to, but within the week, no less.
Might I suggest then that we reconvene tomorrow to discuss this further once we have all had a chance to think?
This is agreeable.
And to answer your earlier question, yes, I am more than happy for you to refer to me as a friend, and that is likewise how I regard you.
I am pleased that at least this is something we may hold apart from all the other dross that gathers around our lives.
Indeed, after all, it has been my friendship with Sobek and yourself that has in part sustained me through these long years. If we turn on each other, then we truly have nothing.
For what it is worth, I know that I was rash leaving. As I was saying at the airstrip, my intent, though, still rash though it might have been, short-sighted and negligent towards you and our shared past. Even with all this, I designed it so that I would spare you further pain and allow you to sleep in the repose of Hennet while I did what I did and left.
Indeed, but that is the past. Let us meet tomorrow and discuss the future.
Very well. I believe I shall take a stroll. There is a particular vendor of sweet delicacies around the corner there that I have taken some refuge in. If you do enjoy your delicacies, I can recommend. It's just over there. It's started gesturing towards where you need to go if you want to buy like the local crepes.
Thank you. If Sobek is willing to book us both a room here, I believe I will retire for the evening. You've given me much to think about. Until tomorrow, Casman.
Until tomorrow. And he does take his leave to go in the garden and the street outside.
And I think with that, I'm going to retire to brood for the evening and think about what he's said.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, looking at the time, I think that might be a good point to wrap it up. Unless there's something you need to address before
I'm
we.
good.
Huh?
I was just going to spend a few hours wandering the city.
Mm-hmm.
Taking
Yeah,
it
definitely
in.
possible.
I didn't have a intent to talk to anyone or consider putting a bullet in Cosmo's brain. You know.
So like, you just follow him outside.
Yeah.
Crap this!
The judges send their regards.
You have been judged. Okay. So you go out, wander the capital. It looks pleasing enough. Like there's nothing sort of outwardly wrong with it.
It just feels wrong.
But there's something in, as far as you can tell, and especially because you've been told this particular thing, something in the way that life flows in the city is just not compatible with you at all. Okay, and yeah, you've seen the many architectural wonders, such as the cathedral, which is entirely unlike anything you've seen before.
I don't pick up. I know we've been told that there's no other arisen here, but I don't detect anything like that.
No, you don't. And you can really tell why. It's not something you would want to
It's not
do.
subtle.
No. It's very effective in warding the Arisen away, even though it doesn't really like it doesn't erode your Sekhem or anything, but it's not a good place to be, which is manifested by, as we close out the session, with Sobek wandering the streets and Khufu staring at the minibar in the hotel room. And you both feeling the effects of the capital, which manifests in both of you temporarily. As long as you remain within the bounds of the capital, you have one less composure now while you're there,
Interesting.
because it grinds away at your soul in some very tangible ways.
I'm tempted to go, Mantle of the God King and just
Just walk around.
yeah,
City, you think you can
I'm gonna
defeat
fix
me?
this.
Street?
Well, if you need someone who looks like a giant stone golem to walk with you, man,
Yeah.
I'm all over it.
Team up.
Curse Necropolis Rio, the twins take on the mean streets, literally, of the capital. No. That's it for the session then, and we'll pick up from there next time.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for running that. Very much enjoyed it.
Yep. Thanks for playing.
And I will end the stream here.
Excuse me. Yeah, thank you very much, mate. I appreciate that.